Hi everybody, my name is Renee. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator at Memorial Foundation, and today I'm really excited. We're kicking off our very first Health Tips Facebook Live series. We're actually off-site today. We're here in the Healthy Eats classroom. And I have some guests that I'm going to introduce you to in a minute. We're going to do, you are going to learn about 3 different recipes. They're all plant-based recipes, and our theme today is Plants to Fight the Blues. It's going to be a really fun program. Hey, thanks for joining us. We're so happy to have you here. So I want to tell you a little bit about this program before we get started and as we wait for folks to join us. Our Health Tips series is a series that's sponsored this year by Yakima Federal Savings and Loan. We're really grateful for their partnership. We're going to put some information in the comments below, and their partnership allows us to continue advancing healthcare in Yakima, especially around our Healthy Yakima initiative. And this is programs that include cooking classes like the one we'll have today, diabetes prevention, and a number of other education classes. So if you're interested in also supporting the Memorial Foundation, we would be so grateful for your support. I will include the link to our website in the comments below, and there's just a donate button at the top, and we would be so appreciative. But you can also just give your feedback, send us a direct message, or even leave a comment. If you end up watching this broadcast after it's live, please leave a comment if you have questions, and we will be sure to reach out and get those answers for you. So I want to turn our program over. It looks like we've got some people here watching. Thanks for being here today. So I want to introduce you to Elaina Moon, certified health coach and owner here at Healthy Eats Classroom, and also Ineke Ojanen. She's a registered dietitian with Yakima Valley Memorial. So I'm going to move over here and we'll get started.
Hi everyone, I'm Elaina. I am the owner of Healthy Eats Nutrition. I teach cooking classes, and I also help teach through Memorial Hospital diabetes prevention class. I am so excited to be with you guys today and be able to share some recipes with you and get to hang out with my good friend Ineke.
Yeah. And I'm Ineke Ojanen, registered dietitian with Yakima Valley Memorial Hospital. As you may mentioned, I had the pleasure of teaching Food for Life, so plant-based cooking classes for a few years, and we now have the opportunity to bring it virtually to you. What we are planning on doing is doing these virtual cooking classes once a month. It will end up being on the second Friday of every month, so our next one will be February 15th, no, 12th. I should have looked at the date before I got on. We'll post the date for you guys. And each month will be a different nutrition topic with 2 to 3 recipes. And again, they'll be all plant-based. I really wish you could taste the food. So I really would also love in the comments that you include, especially coming back, if you tried any of the recipes and what you thought of them. So as we were saying that this topic today was plants to fight the blues, and I thought this was a wonderful topic, especially to talk about in January and with how 2020 went, and we're just starting to go into 2021. And so how to get through when life is going rough, and how to improve our mood. And I really think of these cooking classes as food as medicine. And looking at the big picture, I'll be talking about individual nutrients that can help with improving our mood. But again, these are examples of recipes on how we can really put that nutrition information together. And so we're actually going to start with a recipe that Elaina is going to demonstrate, and I'll be kind of putting in some tidbits about the research about mood and preventing and managing depression as we're doing the recipe. So we'll just build it in as we're talking and demonstrating. So I'm going to turn it back over to Elaina.
Alright, so I'm going to start with a recipe I just developed because I was thinking about getting more greens in for breakfast, and we all know how to put them in a smoothie or an omelet or whatever you decide to put them in. But I thought, how fun would it be to incorporate greens in a chia pudding? Now, some of you have heard of chia pudding before. It's a pretty popular dish, and I do one for my classes. But this one incorporates 2 wonderfully healthy things: some spinach and a little bit of matcha green tea powder. So it's going to give you that extra little boost in the morning with your greens. So in my blender, I have a little bit of coconut milk. I have my matcha green tea powder, which you can find this at most natural food sections or even on Amazon. And I also have a little bit of vanilla. You can use maple syrup, honey, whatever you have on hand to sweeten it. And we're gonna post this recipe in the comments so that you'll have that to make at home later. So I have everything in here. You ideally want a high-powered blender. If you don't have one, just a really good blender will work. So I'm gonna put this on its base and we're gonna blend this until it's super smooth. Let's turn this guy on. Simple. I love blender things, food processor things. If you follow me a lot on Instagram or Facebook, you'll know that. I love things that are simple. So we have this beautiful green color in here. So I'm just gonna pour this right into my bowl. So pretty. You can skip that morning coffee in the morning and instead have this for a little energy boost. We're gonna sprinkle in about 1/4 cup of chia seeds. And you want to give these a whisk. And a lot of times I will whisk, let it sit for a few minutes, come back whisk, because the chia seeds are going to help us thicken up that liquid and make this into a pudding. But what tends to happen with chia seeds is they get a little clumpy. So once it starts to thicken up, I'm just going to give this a little extra whisk. And within about an hour, you should be at a pudding consistency. I'm going to show you what this looks like at the end of our cooking demonstration. We're going to put it into our bowl, top it with a little bit of shredded coconut, a little bit of banana. You can use mango, pineapple, any type of fruit that you like. I love tropical with this. It just feels right. And that is our matcha chia seed pudding. It's delicious, it's easy, and look, I just made us some lunch.
Looks delicious. I can't wait to try that once it sets up. So again, we'll be talking about some of the foods to fight the depression as we go along, and that recipe is a great start. One of the things that we see with research with preventing and managing depression, decreasing depression symptoms, is to start your morning off with some protein at breakfast. That helps stabilize mood. So what we understand is that depression is a really complex mood disorder. We don't understand everything, but a lot of what the research is for managing and again preventing depression is looking at the chemical imbalances. Most of these are neurotransmitters such as serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, epinephrine, those chemical imbalances, and how foods can help restore that balance. Some of these things we see with research, sometimes we don't always know what cause and effect is. Is one thing a cause of another, or is that the effect? But we do see overall when people do follow a more whole foods, plant-based way of eating pattern, that it does decrease symptoms of depression. So the chia seed pudding, whether you use it as a dessert or if you use it as a breakfast, that chia seed is a source of protein, so it has amino acids that are necessary for the neurotransmitters to form. It also is a good source of omega-3 fatty acids, and same with the greens. Omega-3 fatty acids are really important for our brain health, and that's where a lot of our mood disorders are related to, all different sorts of our brain. This recipe, this is going to be the kale and sweet potato burrito. We're also incorporating greens, and what I wanted to show you, you do not need to do this in your Instant Pot. However, you can cook, I cooked my quinoa, which is a complete protein for a grain. It's a whole grain with the lentils and sweet potatoes all in an Instant Pot at once. So one pot dirty. Now, if you're wanting something that's easier for this recipe, you can buy frozen pre-cooked quinoa or the quinoa in the microwavable bags. You can buy canned lentils, and you can always just toss the sweet potato in the microwave. When you do it in the Instant Pot, you are going to have this problem that I have, is in order to be able to cook your lentils and quinoa through, your sweet potato is going to be on the softer side. So if you want a little bit firmer, you aren't going to be able to put it all in one pot. I wanted one pot, so that's how it's going to be. I like to keep the skin on it, so we're going to have some more fiber. A lot of research about the gut-mind connection. And so we really need to make sure that we have a wide variety of gut bacteria and a large quantity. So there's some fiber for us. So that's going to be the inside of our burrito. I'm actually just going to pull this out. I actually put this, it was kind of dirty there, but I did this as a double batch. So this is a great recipe to make ahead of time and make a large quantity. And so I'll just be putting this in this bowl. Just set that aside. I already cut up some of the sweet potatoes. Again, they're on the softer side. I left the skin, but that's okay. They might just in this, again, how I cooked it might be a little bit softer. And I'm going to stir in the kale. So you could do any green if you had spinach on hand. I like to stir it in while the lentils and the quinoa are still hot, because that's going to help with the greens to get a little softer. So I'll just stir that in. We can put as many greens as you want in there, and then with seasoning. You can do whatever seasoning you want. So for a single recipe with seasoning, we're gonna do about 2 teaspoons of any herb blend that you would want. I also added some onion powder. I chose to keep the garlic out. I do love garlic, but if this is a breakfast burrito and if you don't want your fellow cohorts to have garlic breath, I kept it out for this recipe, and there's also a little bit of salt. So I'm going to add that in there. And then another interesting ingredient that we have is some balsamic vinegar. And so this is a really nice addition for this. This is also a great way to use leftovers that you maybe have from dinner. So if you had maybe you had brown rice left over in your fridge, or you had a different bean. You could do black beans, brown rice. You could use a taco seasoning for this. So this is you could do so much with it. The other option too is this is a little starchy or a little heavier, but at the same time it's going to be very filling. It's a good source of protein. However, if you want a little on the lighter side, you can incorporate more non-starchy vegetables. So that is what our filling is going to look like, and we are going to put that into a tortilla. So these tortillas, we did them in the microwave, but sometimes it works better if you put it in an oven in some foil so that they're already cooling off a little bit. So they'll be a little bit harder to wrap. And for this, I'm gonna probably put just about a half a cup in there. I always have a tendency to overstuff everything. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna fold in the sides first and kind of create that seal. And then you want to fold over this side and just keep rolling that in. So there we go. So there's your burrito. So again, my burrito started, it's a little bit, I prefer to have it a little bit warmer, but I wanted to keep it going for you. So that's what it will look like. The other option too, like if you wanted to add some other heart healthy fats in there, omega-3s, you could spread on the tortilla first. You could spread some hummus or some avocado on there, and that can also help with, again, with the protein in there, the fiber that's in there. Some of those fats can help with stabilizing blood sugars and stabilizing mood. So part of that research is incorporating that fiber. We don't want a whole bunch of simple sugars at first thing in the morning, because we'll get this rush of serotonin, and then we'll crash a little bit later. So I'll end up plating some more of this up.
Yay, that looks good. All right, thank you, Ineke. That looks really delicious and really easy. When she said she was going to cook everything in the Instant Pot at the same time, I was like, now mind blown. You tend to do that a lot with me. So I'm going to show you one of my favorite breakfast patty recipes. Is a lentil herb savory breakfast patty. These are a great make ahead. You can throw them into your freezer and just keep them in there whenever you need them. This is a great alternative to typical sausage on your breakfast patty. A lot of times we think of beans as being healthy, full of protein, lots of fiber, but a lot of people don't think of having beans or legumes for breakfast, okay, or even vegetables for that matter. So that's the fun thing about today is we're showing you a lot of ways of doing both of those. So in my bowl here, I went ahead and ground up in a food processor. My food processor is my second love. A little bit of mushrooms and some onions. And I put the mushrooms in the skillet first because if you put them in there, leave them in a nice flat layer on the bottom of the skillet, you're going to get a nice crust on them. Just don't touch them, okay? My friend Jason Patel, he gave me that awesome tip, and now every time I make mushrooms, that's what I do. So grind them up, put a little oil on the bottom, flatten them out on the bottom of your skillet, and just let them sit. You'll start to smell them kind of getting nutty and toasted and just smelling like a rich mushroom. Toss them a little bit, do it again. Then add your ground up onions and cook them, saute them so they're a little soft. I have some shredded zucchini here that I just drained off the water, put in a paper towel and just squeeze it. I have a little bit of breadcrumb. I'm using a gluten-free breadcrumb because that's what I prefer. I have some oats in here, and then my lentils, they got a little buried at the bottom, but my lentils were a canned lentil. And you can find canned lentils at Rose Hours or at Fred Meyer in just the regular beans section, in the canned bean section. Drain those off really good. Make sure you get all the water out of them, and then just add them to your bowl. Super simple. Now, if you have some leftover lentils from Ineke's dish, you can throw those in here, even a little bit of that extra quinoa if you got it. It's not gonna hurt a thing. And then I have some beautiful spices in here, some things that remind you of a typical breakfast patty. So I have some ground fennel, and it's hard to find ground fennel in our grocery stores, but if you get this little container of whole fennel, throw it in your food processor or your blender or a spice grinder and just grind it up. And see, mine's still a little chunky, but it has more of a grind to it. A little bit of rosemary, a little bit of some thyme, some sage, and all those flavors are gonna remind us of a breakfast sausage. So we're gonna sprinkle that in.
And I might chip in as she's just putting the seasoning all around with here. So one of the nutrients that we often see that people may be deficient in with depression is vitamin D, and there's not a lot of good food sources for that. And even if you do get out in the sun where we live in Yakima, vitamin D deficiency is more common. Mushrooms are a beautiful example of a food. If they've been exposed to ultraviolet light, that will be a good source of vitamin D. And the package will say that if it's been exposed to ultraviolet light. So if that's a source that you want to use, look for those in the stores. A lot of the stores have that.
Perfect. I love it. So my mixture is mushed together. You can see some of the lentils still have some shape, but they're mostly mashed up. So if you have any of those extra gloves that you decided to buy, put the gloves on, get your hands in there, get a little dirty, and then you can just take these off and toss them. That way you don't have to keep washing your hands. So I'm gonna start making these into patties. And it's up to you how big you want them. The bigger they are, the longer they'll take to cook. And we're gonna bake these at a 400-degree oven for 35 to 40 minutes. If you have a smaller patty, like the ones that I'm making, probably need about 30 minutes. You're gonna make a larger patty, then you can bake them for a little bit longer. I'm using a silicone baking sheet. I love these things. If you're a parchment lover, go right ahead. Tin foil, these are gonna stick a little bit. So I would shy away from some tin foil, but cooking spray, just spray a little bit of cooking spray if you're a little concerned it might stick. But these silicone baking sheets are gonna save you a lot of waste from using parchment paper or anything disposable. So you can get these off of Amazon, Bed Bath & Beyond, any of those. They're not very expensive, and all you have to do is wash them when you wash your cookie sheet, and that is it. You just keep reusing them so you can't use them anymore. Nothing will stick to these. You can test that theory at home. So I'm gonna keep patting these. I'm gonna spray them with a little bit of cooking spray, 400-degree oven, 35 to 40 minutes. And I'm going to show you what the finished product looks like in just a minute. I think Ineke has a few more things she would like to share, and then we'll come back and see what these look like when they're done.
And both like the breakfast patties, but also like the burrito, these are really great things again to make ahead. So I encourage you to practice some meal prepping, and they freeze really well. So if it's a burrito and you want to eat it warm, I'd suggest wrapping those in aluminum foil so you can just toss them in your oven as you're warming up. If it is something you want to be able to toss in your microwave, don't wrap it in that. Your lentil patties, if you were to put some saran wrap between each one, or just freeze them on a single layer before you put them in a bag for your freezer, that is also a great way to do some meal prep. I honestly, with the lentil patties, I will sometimes do that as a lunch too. So it's a great way to incorporate that in. So if we were to kind of sum up how these recipes can help with preventing and managing, treating depression, is us really focusing more on whole foods, plant-based. We're really limiting our processed foods, which also includes some of a lot of times when we look at research, our red meats, our processed meats, our simple sugars, where we're adding just white sugar, brown sugar, any form of sugar to foods, just highly processed foods. We do see increase in depression symptoms versus following more of a plant-based, again, less processed if we were really to sum it up, where we do get those whole proteins, the fiber, and also these foods are going to be more nutrient dense. And as like with the chia seed pudding, we're going to really start incorporating those fruits and vegetables in, or you will see with our breakfast sandwich, like we put a slice of tomato on there, but you can also incorporate other vegetables in. So think of how you can incorporate fruit or vegetable at your breakfast time as well. We would love to open it up, as Elaina is still working on the patties, to see if there's any questions or comments you have either about the recipes or if you'd like to know more about Plants to Fight the Blues. I know we have a few people that have been watching live. If you aren't watching this live, please still put your question in there so that I can still monitor this, and I'll be looking for it in the weeks to come to answer your questions. But yes, if there's any questions that you have, or give you a little bit of time. None. Okay. So Elaina's going to be doing the chia seed pudding, putting that into a nice bowl for us and topping that off. It's still not quite the consistency that that we're looking for, but that's common for our chia seeds. So it takes a little bit longer for that to thicken. But that's a great example of something too that you can make ahead of time. So I'm going to let Elaina show you the finished product for the lentil patties.
All right, so I finished making my patties. They're going to go in the oven, 400 degrees, 35 to 40 minutes, depending on their size, but they turn out delicious. So you put that in between an whole wheat English muffin, a little bit of tomato. I used a Violife cheddar cheese. You can get this at Fred Meyer. They just started carrying it there. And I just popped mine in a toaster oven, warmed it up, melted the cheese, and there you go. Very, very simple, very tasty. It's so good. Yummy, yummy.
And as she's showing that, one of the things I might say too about with how something like this, instead of like a sausage with a cow's milk cheese, so if you're lactose intolerant, this is a great option for you. But also when we look at depression, one of the things that they're looking at is called arachidonic acid. It's an omega-6 fatty acid, and it's found in dairy and in all of our animal proteins, whether that's chicken, beef, pork, to fish as well, but not as a great extent. And so this is an example again of a breakfast sandwich that doesn't have as much of this omega-6, and those omega-6 can increase depression symptoms. So again, a good way of having maybe something similar that you're familiar with a breakfast sandwich, but this is a plant-based approach that you can make ahead of time.
Great. So Ineke, there's a question from Jennifer, and she wants to know if there's much of a difference in the nutritional value of the lighter colored sweet potato than the more orange ones we sometimes see.
Great question. So a lot of times they say eat by the colors of the rainbow. The more vivid the color, the more nutrient dense it is, the more nutrients. And that nutrient that you'll see like a sweet potato, the more reddish orange ones, they'll be a little bit higher in the carotenoids, the vitamin A. When I was just looking at nutrients and depression, there's not a big link with vitamin A in that, but we'll end up having a feature probably on eye health, and so vitamin A is really important for our eye and skin health. So a little bit more vitamin A in that. Great question.
Great.
my chia seed pudding thickened up quite nicely. It will get thicker as it sits. The recipe that I'll post will say about an hour to thicken. So you can definitely do this the day of, or you can let this sit overnight. If it gets too thick while it's sitting overnight, you can always add a little extra coconut milk to it. But here is our finished product with that little bit of banana, some shredded coconut, and that makes a great side dish too for our lentil patties. It's very pretty. And then Ineke has her beautiful wraps there. Looks like we have a pretty healthy lunch.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited about this. What's wonderful about these classes is that you have the opportunity to ask questions and to get more information. Once we're able to teach in person again, then we'd love to have you guys come down to the Healthy Eats classroom. But while we're waiting for that moment to happen, next Friday, January 22nd, we will have another class that Ineke is hosting for us called Daily Nutrition. She is going to be sharing 6 recipes with you, 3 of which she will be cooking with you. So you will be able to cook along with her. You'll get the recipes ahead of time, what to do to prep, and then you'll be able to be at your home cooking along with her, trying all the recipes, smelling the great smells that you missed from those cooking classes, and you'll be able to eat a full meal at home, and that's from 5:30 to 6:30, January 22nd.
And the great thing with cooking along is then you'll get to give us feedback and tell us what's your favorite recipe, what the taste is. So that will be the exciting part of that. And again, just as a reminder for this series, the next one will be on Friday, February 12th from 12 to 12:30 as live, and then you can watch the recording as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. Again, you may continue to put your comments or questions in Facebook, and we'll keep watching that.